The show begins in 1946 when a little girl named Mayor Rutledge is out with her parents for a picnic. Unfortunately, light rainfall interrupts their plan, and the family of 3 is forced to stay inside their car. However, little Maya is not dissuaded by the rainfall and convinces her parents to let her go outside. She strolls around the park and notices some beautiful wildflowers nearby. Just as she picks those flowers, a mysterious light appears above her, and she disappears from the spot. In 1951, a black soldier in the U.S. Army named Richard Tyler is being bullied for getting a white woman pregnant. After the other soldiers leave him alone, crouching on the floor, a mysterious light appears above his tent and whisks Richard away. In 1979, an old millionaire, Orson Bailey, leaves work early as it is his 35th anniversary. Just as he is about to get into his car, a bright light appears above him and yanks Orson away. Similarly, in 2001, a boy named Sean is camping out with his cousin, Kyle. The 2 young boys are drinking and talking about Sean's 14-year-old neighbor, Nikki. Without warning, a bright light appears above them and pulls Sean away while Kyle is knocked out cold from the shock of the mysterious light. The next scene opens in 2004, the present day, where Tom Baldwin, an excommunicated FBI agent, watches over his son Kyle. The events of the mysterious night in 2001 sent Kyle into a medical coma, and he hasn't woken up for the past 3 years. Because of this tragedy, Tom seldom reported back to his job and spent years trying to find out what happened to his son. He suspects his nephew, Sean, had something to do with it, but Sean, too, has been missing for 3 years. Currently, Tom is watching the news about how a massive comet has been sighted in space when his wife, Linda, enters the room. The past 3 years have not been easy for Linda, and she wants a fresh start in life. Elsewhere, Agent Diana Skouras of the Department of Homeland Security in Seattle is urgently called to work. Her boss, Dennis Ryland, informs that the massive comet has changed course and is now descending directly towards Earth with increasing speed. As the comet shows no sign of slowing down, several countries launch destructive missiles, hoping to shoot it down. However, the rockets have absolutely no effect on the comet, which makes Diana think that the celestial body might not be a comet after all. Just as people prepare for the eventual collision by calling their loved ones to say goodbye, the comet begins to slow down. As it enters the atmosphere, Diana calculates whatever the bright object is, it is going to land soon near Mount Rainier, which is close to their headquarters. Soon after, hundreds of people, including emergency services, journalists, police and FBI agents, arrive near a lake at the foot of Mount Rainier to witness the comet falling. But, in a surprising twist, the falling celestial body turns out to be a mass of bright light, and not a comet. The mass stops near the surface and, without warning, bursts, knocking the onlookers away. As the fog from the blast clears out, thousands of people can be seen, men, women, and children of all ages and nationalities. Mayor Rutledge, Orson Bailey, and Sean are among the people who have returned, and they look the same as the day they disappeared. On the other hand, Tom notices his nephew Sean on the TV, and immediately heads to his boss, Dennis Ryland, so that he can return to duty. Although Dennis is initially reluctant to let him in, as Tom has a personal interest in the investigation. He eventually agrees. Tom is then paired with Diana to round up and investigate the 4,400 people who have returned mysteriously on the foot of Mount Rainier. Meanwhile, the returnees, currently being held in quarantine, begin to grow restless. Tom questions his nephew Sean about what happened to Kyle that night. When Sean is shocked to know that his cousin is in a coma, Tom implies that he knows what happened and is lying. This accusation makes the young returnee angry, and he storms out of the questioning booth. On the other hand, Richard and another returnee, Lily Moore, share a short conversation. He tells her that he went missing in 1951 and mentions Lily looks like an old friend of his. Soon, they discover that Richard's old friend was, in fact, Lily's grandmother, who had the same name. Richard and Lily used to date in 1951, and he was constantly bullied for dating a white woman. After a series of preliminary interviews and medical exams, the returnees are released due to the lack of a legal right to hold them. Everyone leaves the holding centers except 130 of them, including Maya, who knows her parents are dead by now, and she has nowhere to go. Following this, Lily goes in search of her family, who didn't show up to meet her at the center. Excited, she returns to her house, where she sees her daughter Heidi, who doesn't recognize her. Soon, her husband, Brian, comes to the door and reveals that he remarried, and Lily is no longer welcome at the house. Similarly, Richard returns to his old neighborhood in St. Louis only to discover that it has now turned into a homeless den. Elsewhere, Tom brings Diana to a party organized for Sean so that his colleague can be convinced that those who returned are no different from the rest of the people. Later, he goes outside to see Sean and tries to apologize by saying he's glad the youngster is back. During the conversation, a bird falls dead near them after flying straight on a window pane. Sean picks it up and continues talking with his uncle. Within a few seconds, the bird returns to life and flies away, leaving Tom puzzled. The same day, Maya is taken into custody by her new foster family. She bids Diana goodbye but cryptically says they will see each other soon, much to the agent's surprise. Elsewhere, after visiting his wife in a nursing home, Orson goes to his former firm, intent on getting his job back. However, his partner's son, Adam Kensington, is currently running the company and informs Orson that his stocks in the firm were bought out. Since there are no available openings right now, Adam says he won't be able to give the old man a job. Unbeknownst to Orson, Adam has been secretly scamming his customers and doesn't want the old man back as he is a threat to his scam. Meanwhile, at the foster parents' home, Maya gets her room where she puts her shoes on a chair. She claims that she does not want her shoes to be wet later. This surprises the couple, and they have no idea what the little kid is talking about. The first night out from the holding center goes difficult for everyone. Richard spends his time at a cafe as he has no house or relatives to go to. Sean receives threats of freak painted on his car, while Lily wanders the streets, not knowing where to go. In the meantime, at the foster parents' house, a pipe from the washing machine bursts and water starts overflowing. Just as little Maya had predicted, the water floods all the rooms, but her shoes don't get wet as she had placed them on the chair. Later, Orson goes to the house of his ex-partner, where his son, Adam, lives. The businessman decides not to open the door despite fully knowing the ordeal the old man is going through. But when Orson starts shaking the gate angrily, the whole house begins to quake. A few minutes later, the windows shatter and fly out. Orson then begins to scream in anger, and it causes Adam's head to burst, and the traitor falls to the floor, impaling himself accidentally. Subsequently, Orson is arrested on suspicion of being involved in Adam's murder, but without evidence, the police are forced to release him as the security cameras clearly show that he didn't enter the home. Later, Tom and Diana question him, and the latter reads a statement from Adam which describes the old man trying to force his old company to give him money. This accusation enrages Orson, and once again, the objects around the room start to shake and shatter. But the old man controls his anger and leaves the interrogation, as there is no evidence against him. Following this, Orson goes to visit his wife at the old age home only to be told that she passed away last night when he was held by the police. Enraged, he begins a scuffle with the hospital staff, which causes another tremor and lights to shatter. Exhausted, he runs away from the hospital, prompting Tom and Diana to track him down. On the other hand, Lily goes to a doctor with a bout of nausea and learns that she's about to have a baby. This news shocks her as her husband had been away for 11 months before she vanished, and she had never been with anyone else. She meets her husband and tells him about the pregnancy, but he dismisses her concerns. Furthermore, he refuses to let his ex-wife see their daughter, Heidi, and shows her a restraining order, warning her not to approach him or his family. At school, Sean is continuously bullied by another student, Andrew, for being a weird person who returned after going missing. Fed up, Sean snaps back at the bully, and the two get into a fight. Initially, Andrew gets the best of Sean, but soon, the latter manages to subdue his abuser to the ground by pinning down his head. Suddenly, all the color in Andrew's face gets drained and Sean feels like he is pulling the life out of his bully by simply touching him. He then lets the bully go, but all the kids watching the fight get spooked by the incident. Elsewhere, Maya's foster father convinces his wife to send a little girl back to the holding center. He is scared of her future predicting abilities and does not want anything spooky to happen. Reluctantly, the foster mother agrees and goes to Maya's room to inform her about their decision. To her surprise, the little girl has already packed her bags and fully knows that she is going to be sent back. Before dropping Maya at the holding center, the foster mother urges her not to abruptly announce her future predictions in front of other people, as it might scare them away. After a few days, Richard finds Lily in a park where she is watching her daughter Heidi from a distance. Relieved to see her friend, Lily hugs Richard, and the duo go to a cafe. There, she tells him about the baby she's about to have and how she has no place to go. Richard, in turn, admits that he had an affair with her grandma and proposes to help Lily with accommodation. On the other hand, Tom and Diana arrive at an old farmhouse where Orson is currently hiding. The old man is scared and asks the agents to leave him alone. When Tom refuses to go away, Orson starts to panic and accidentally causes a strong tremor. The entire house begins to crumble as the old man helplessly cries that he cannot control it. Tom, whose head is now starting to hurt, barges inside the door and points a gun at Orson, but he collapses before he can shoot, bleeding from his nose. The panicked Diana enters the house and shoots Orson in the shoulder, which brings everything under control for the moment. The duo then take the old man to the hospital, where their boss, Dennis, instructs them to find out what other talents the returnees have in order to prevent more tragedies. That night, Sean goes to the hospital to visit his cousin, Kyle. He is spooked out after the incident with the dead bird and the bully classmate whose life he seemingly sucked through his hand. Cautiously, he puts his hand on Kyle's chest, and almost immediately, the latter starts to show signs of recovery. Scared, Sean pulls his hand back before anything bad can happen, and runs back home. The scene then shifts to one of the returnees, Carl Morrissey, who disappeared on February 16, 2003, from Seattle, Washington, and came back 18 months later. He works in a supermarket and currently discusses how things haven't really changed for him with a loyal customer. Just then, his boss, Bert, pulls him to the side and scolds him for chatting with old customers instead of stocking shelves. After work, Carl meets with his wife, Grace, as the duo head back home for the evening. Carl wants to take a shortcut through their local park, Bradley Park, but Grace tells him it's not safe anymore. Unlike before, the park is now full of junkies waiting to commit small robberies. At the headquarters of Homeland Security, Dennis Ryland informs Tom and Diana that he believes Maya has future predicting abilities. He came to this conclusion after talking to her foster parents and a lunch lady in the cafeteria, who had interacted with the little girl. Confused, the agents wonder why Maya, a little girl, was held for 60 years and returned with the ability to see the future. Meanwhile, Richard and Lily sign a lease for an apartment after a short conversation. Richard mentions he was afraid they would be turned down since he is black, but Lily reassures him that times have changed. As she looks around, everything suddenly starts to get hazy, and she feels terrified and nauseous. She senses this is the baby's doing and tells Richard she is feeling sick and needs to leave the apartment. A few days later, Carl returns home after making a short run to the store for groceries. Despite his wife's warning, he takes a shortcut through the park, where he gets mugged by two thugs. At first, the returnee gives them all the money he has, but when they are not satisfied with it, things begin to escalate. One of the thugs tries to punch Carl, but he fights back with astonishing speed. Within a few short minutes, he manages to subdue both of them. When he gets back home, he excitedly tells his wife everything, and tries to convince Grace he has been given powers for a reason. Carl is inspired to restore the park to the way it was before he vanished. The next day, Tom and Linda are called to the hospital, where a doctor tells them that he saw something strange in Kyle's brain activity. He explains that a brief burst of brain activity suddenly occurred last Thursday. Following this, Tom goes to the nurse's station to check the records to see if anyone visited Kyle last Thursday. The nurse on duty informs him that his nephew Sean came late that night. Soon after, Tom goes to his nephew's school to discuss what happened that Thursday. Although Sean admits he went to see Kyle, he vehemently denies doing anything. Tom reminds him of the bird that came back to life on his hand, but the young returnee walks away agitated. A few hours later, Diana and Tom meet with one of the scientists named Marco at the headquarters of Homeland Security. He tells the two that gravity has slightly changed at the places where the 4,400 people disappeared. This leads the trio to consider the possibility of alien abduction. Meanwhile, at their new apartment, Lily tells Richard that she knows what her baby is thinking, and she can feel its responses to situations. She wants to see her daughter Heidi, but Richard reminds her that her husband, Brian, has put a restraining order on her. That night, while his wife is asleep, Carl goes to Bradley Park and begins painting benches and cleaning statues covered in graffiti. Suddenly, he hears a woman scream as three men try to assault her. Carl goes over to the men and confronts them to leave the woman alone. However, the thugs refuse and attack him immediately. Just like the last time, the returnee begins to fight them while the girl looks on, bewildered. Early the next morning, Diana and Tom visit the attempted assault victim at her job. She is shaken up and tells the agents that she saw only one guy take on all three attackers. The agents mention that one guy fighting three isn't unheard of. However, she states it wasn't the fact that there were three thugs, it was how the guy moved that was extraordinary. She then notes that the man who saved her life smelled of day-old fish. Elsewhere, Lily hides outside Brian's house watching through a window as Heidi does her homework. Suddenly, the baby in her womb reacts in discomfort just like it did in the apartment earlier, causing her to knock over a plant. Alarmed by the noise, Brian looks up and notices his ex-wife. Later, we see that Lily is arrested and phones Richard from the station. Later on, Richard approaches Brian as he is leaving his house for work. Richard offers a short introduction and gives his word that if he drops the charges, Lily won't bother him or Heidi again. Although Brian seems reluctant to take the word of a stranger, he eventually agrees. Soon afterwards, Lily is released from prison and finds Richard waiting for her. She tells him that when she saw Heidi, she saw a happy family despite her not being around. Promising to stay away, she reveals her hunch that the baby dislikes Heidi for some reason. Elsewhere, Sean is working on his car when Nikki enters. She immediately asks why he has been acting differently towards her lately. When he refuses to answer her questions, she approaches his car and accidentally touches the engine, which burns her hand. Alarmed, Sean rubs her hand, and within a few seconds, the burn disappears. Just as Nikki realizes he can heal, the two kiss. However, Nikki then runs away as she is his younger brother's girlfriend. Over at the headquarters of Homeland Security, Tom signs the divorce papers sent by his wife. Ever since their son went into a coma, Tom consumed himself with trauma and work, which made their relationship cold. Soon, he is joined by Diana, who starts explaining how she narrowed down the field of possible Bradley Park vigilantes. After a short explanation, she comes to 13 people who fit her profile. However, she's able to single out Carl Morrissey because he works in the seafood section of a supermarket near the park. That night, Carl once again walks through the park. There, he sees a man spraying graffiti on the clean wall. Enraged, he yells at the guy, and the man throws the can of paint at Carl. The two then get into a fight, but Carl once again manages to quickly subdue the attacker. However, other thugs nearby begin to gang up on him. In the meantime, Tom and Diana arrive at the Morrissey house. Diana asks Grace if she has heard of the Bradley Park vigilante, but she pretends not to know anything about it. But when Tom asks her about her husband, she eventually gives in and takes the agents to the park. There, they find Carl sitting on a bench with a large knife wound in his abdomen. Without wasting any time, Tom calls for an ambulance, but it is too late as he slowly begins to bleed out in his wife's arms. As Carl dies, he admits to Grace that although he thought he was sent back to clean up the neighborhood, he was wrong. When the police begin to clear out the spot the next morning, people from Carl's neighborhood take action and begin to clean up the park. Back at the headquarters, Diana decides to sign the paperwork approving the temporary guardianship of Maya. When she enters the room, Maya is already dressed, suitcase in hand. The kid already knew before anyone had a chance to tell her the news. On the other hand, Tom rushes through a hospital corridor and enters Kyle's room. He sees Linda sitting by an empty bed, bawling her eyes out. The doctors have taken Kyle for surgery to relieve the excess fluid in his skull. Alarmed, Linda tells Tom there is a fairly high probability Kyle could suffer permanent brain damage. A few days later, Diana watches a popular early morning TV program, The Barbara Yates Show, in her home. Jordan Collier, one of the 44-0 returnees, is currently a guest in the show. He claims he wants to put a human face on the 44-0 and stop people like Barbara from painting them as bad people. While having breakfast, Diana opens the newspaper and the headline states the Friday Harbor killer has returned after 21 years. The notorious Friday Harbor killer had murdered 8 women 21 years ago before the crimes suddenly stopped. However, a few weeks ago, a woman named Teresa Barron was found dead near the woods in the small town of Friday Harbor, bringing the total number of victims to 9. At the Homeland Security headquarters, the agents discuss the recent murder of Teresa Barron. Tom states that Oliver Knox, one of the 4,400, left 21 years ago and came back 3 weeks ago, around the same time when Teresa's body showed up. Following this, Diana and Tom meet Sheriff Conrad of Friday Harbor Town to discuss if Knox can be connected with the crime. Later, they meet Knox himself and interrogate him regarding the murder of Teresa Barron. However, the suspect returnee points out that the victim was born after his abduction, so he didn't even know who she was until he read the news. Well-mannered and a swift talker, Knox manages to convince them he is innocent for now. In the following scene, Sean goes to the lakeside at Mount Rainier, where he, along with the others, had returned. There, he finds several other returnees who frequently gather there to talk to each other. Suddenly, Jordan Collier arrives and announces he wants to organize the 44-0, as the community is slowly starting to protest against them. He then tells the gathered returnees to meet him at his place on Thursday. The following morning, Tom and Diana accompany the sheriff into the woods. Despite the sheriff claiming that the local police had thoroughly checked the spot and found nothing, Diana insists on checking herself. And sure enough, she finds a fingerprint on a leaf, giving the agents a lead. The prints belong to Philip Lopez, a convicted rapist who served 18 years in prison. When the agents rush to his home, they find his body hanging from the stairwell. His suicide note gives a confession of killing not just Teresa Brown, but 9 more women. Furthermore, the confession letter states that the reason for the lapse of time between the 8th and the 9th victim is due to his prison sentence. The next day, Knox creepily takes pictures of a young woman outside a video store. He goes into a bar across the street and chats with the bartender before talking to a stranger named Charlie Staley. He then shows Charlie the photo he took earlier and states he wants to say something about her. That evening, as the girl in the photograph closes her store and leaves for home, Charlie follows her while whistling casually. The next morning, Charlie walks down the street, his white shirt covered in blood stains, while he hears Knox's voice in his head. Disturbed and deranged, he runs into the middle of the street right in front of an oncoming trailer. However, the truck driver slams on his brake before the vehicle can hit Charlie, who is then arrested. Later, Tom and Diana are behind a two-way mirror as they watch Charlie confess to killing the video shop girl and the other 9 girls. However, they know that Charlie was only 5 years old when the first murder occurred, so he couldn't have been the Friday Harbor killer. Similarly, Philip Lopez was left-handed, but the Friday Harbor killer was right-handed, which eliminates him from being the infamous serial killer. The following afternoon, at Jordan Collier's home, members of the 44O meet, wearing badges with their name and year of abduction. Sean talks to Collier about his abilities, but the latter cuts him off, saying he is too busy at the moment as he has several interviews lined up. Following this, Collier leaves Sean and finds Lily in the garden. While the two talk, Lily gets lightheaded and sits down as Richard arrives and gives her water. She then tells Collier she came back pregnant despite not being so when she was abducted. Hearing this, he recommends that they don't mention this to their government-assigned counselor. Next, Collier offers Richard a job in the security department of his foundation for the 44O. After being rejected from several job openings despite his qualifications, Tom is glad to have found a job and happily accepts the offer. In the meantime, Tom and Diana return to Friday Harbor after a letter arrives from the killer to the sheriff's office. The letter contains information that only the killer would know, confirming their suspicion that neither Philip nor Charlie is the real Friday Harbor killer. But they can't arrest Knox until they can concretely link him to the crimes. Meanwhile, Knox drives into a garage and gives a picture of a woman named Felicia to Aaron Mitchell, a worker at the garage. That night, Sean takes a stroll around the lake and remembers what happened on the night he was abducted. The mysterious bright light had come for Kyle, and not him. However, Sean managed to save Kyle by pushing him away, but got grabbed in the process. The next morning, Felicia goes for her morning jog in the woods where Aaron Mitchell stops her creepily. He asks for her help in finding his dog, and advances towards her. Scared, she tries to move past him, but he stops her and brandishes a knife. Fortunately, Tom and Sheriff Conrad appear with guns drawn and subdue Aaron down to the ground. Later, Tom interrogates Aaron and shows a picture of him and Knox in the garage. He asks what Knox told him, but the suspect remains silent. After the unsuccessful attempt, Tom leaves with Diana to go find their main suspect. They soon arrive at Knox's house where the duo enter through the back entrance and see the place full of lit candles. To their horror, Felicia must die is written on the wall with blood. Elsewhere, Felicia enters her house and begins to call someone. Out of the blue, she notices Knox standing right in front of her. As he asks if she would help him find his missing dog, something that Aaron Mitchell had also asked her, Felicia gets creeped out and runs into the next room. Although she slams the door shut, Knox is able to enter the room via another door. She smashes his head with a vase and runs out to the balcony. Fortunately, police cars arrive downstairs. Seeing this, Knox grabs her throat, a knife in his hand, and drags her indoors to murder her. Before he can cause any harm, Tom appears and smacks him in the face, dropping him to the ground. Tom knows that Knox has the ability to brainwash anyone who listens to him talking for long enough. Hence, the agent warns him not to speak or else risk getting shot. A few hours later, Tom and Diana speak with Marco in the theory room of the Homeland Security headquarters. The agents worry that whoever abducted the 44O might not be as kind as they thought if they returned a serial killer with enhanced powers. On the other hand, Marco seeks a bigger picture as he points out that Bailey killed Adam Kensington, who was about to scam thousands of his customers. Similarly, Carl Morrissey's death spurred his neighbors to band together and clean up the park. He thinks there is a ripple effect to the actions of the returnees. In the final scene, Tom arrives at the hospital to find his nephew, Sean, in Kyle's room. As Sean moves away from the bed, Kyle can be seen, sitting up, awake for the first time in 3 years. Tom is stunned and emotional as Kyle asks about how long he has been in the dark. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on the notification, and leave 1,000 likes or 100 comments if you'd like us to continue part 2. Thank you.